and gentlemen, welcome to the signature Jaipuria series titled Be a Part of the Change with the ChangeMakers. The series is dedicated to business leaders who swim against the tide, and with them, there is no problem that can ever outrun a solution. We've earlier had with us luminaries like Dr. Kiran Bedi, Mr. Suresh Narayanan, MD Nestle India, with us on this platform. We have with us today a catalyst, a leader, Mr. Pulkit Trivedi, Director Google Pay for an interaction titled Consumer Insights and Behavioral Intentions, Lessons in the Post-COVID-19 Marketplace. Mr. Pulkit Trivedi is currently the Director of Google Pay India. This is Pulkit's second inning with Google. Pulkit has an illustrious career with 20 plus years of industry experience spanning across top tech companies like Google, Facebook, Intel, and Microsoft. These are indeed aspirational brands for most of us out here. Business strategy, including digital and consumer internet, is Pulkit's forte. Pulkit led the tech, telco, and e-commerce businesses in his earlier stint at Google. At Facebook, Pulkit led e-commerce, retail, travel, FinServe, and other emerging businesses. Pulkit was featured in the list of 40 young business leaders under 40 in 2015 in a list published by Business Today. It's an honor to have you amidst us, Pulkitji, and we extend a welcome to you by way of a green certificate. I request Amitabhji to please present the green certificate. This green certificate, Pulkitji, is a Jaipuria way of espousing the cause of sustainability. We've been doing this for quite a few years now. We don't pluck flowers for a bouquet, rather we plant trees that give flowers. The certificate is a testimony that a tree shall be planted in your name at Trees for Ganges, Buxar. You may also track it using the given certificate number. I would also like to introduce Jaipuria Institute of Management at this platform. Jaipuria is a heritage brand in the world of education. Jaipuria's tryst with education began as early as in 1945 with the establishment of Jaipuria College in Kolkata by the great visionary Padma Bhushan Seth Anandram Jaipuria Ji. Today, Jaipuria is one of the biggest groups in northern and central India to offer AICTE approved, NB accredited, NRIF ranked PGDM programs at Jaipur, Lucknow, Noida, and Indore. The group also includes Jaipuria Schools, Guinea International Limited, and Guinea Global for those who are associated with Jaipuria. It's Jaipuria, for those who are associated with it, is more than an institute. It's a philosophy, it's a value system, and of course, a great place to belong. As I set the stage for the session, I'm sure we all will agree that we have changed as customers, as consumers. We use research to optimize our lives and have become research obsessed. Even about the pettiest stuff that we buy. Mobile searches for best toothbrush have grown more than 100% over the past 2 years. Yes, we want to visit the website of a restaurant before we actually visit it to feel the scent of the place, the price, the menu, and what the food looks like. We wish to curate our experiences before they are created in order to feel excited, confident, and less anxious. Our internet search behavior leaves digital trails, an ocean of pure data, which the tech companies mine to add more meaning to our experiences, because at the end of the day, it's experiences that matter more than the product itself. Let's get more insights on this from Pulkit Trivedi, the man behind Money Made Simple by Google. Welcome you, Pulkitji. It's all yours now, and I request the participants to please post their questions in the Q&A box, and we shall be happy to address them. Welcome, Pulkitji. Looking forward to your address.
Thank you. Let me just share my screen. Great. Hey, good evening, everyone. It's an honor to be here. I have had a few interactions in the past with your institutes, both at Noida and Lucknow. Not many of you may know, but I also am a Jaipurian. I studied in Jaipuria School, Kanpur, a proud Jaipurian indeed. Uh, I can vouch for the fact that there is no better school that I could ever go to than Jaipuria, Kanpur. Uh, Phenomenal campus, uh, great academic and extracurricular environment, and above all, I think great teachers, very committed and very loving teachers. So here I am again, and it's great being here this evening. What I'm going to do is I'm going to run you through a few slides, very interesting ones, lots of data that I hope is useful for you to give you an overview of how consumer behavior is changed. Some of these things may are very intuitive. You may know this already, uh, and I would then like to open it up for questions because I truly believe that presentations are the death of meetings. So I want to make sure that we spend more time in the Q&A part than me just doing a monologue here. But before I begin, I must, not just thank the entire faculty here and all of you who've taken time out to join this evening. Uh, I would begin by saying that this is a very unprecedented time. This has been a year which is probably, at least in all our lifetime, has never been such an instance where there is a new normal. And whether you call it fortunate or unfortunate, now everybody has reconciled to the new normal. And interestingly, for a lot of folks who've joined in, like this batch and the outgoing batch, I think when you will look back, it will probably be you will laugh your way out, and you will have experiences that probably no other batch ever in the academic history of India would have. Imagine a scenario where the outgoing batch is working or studying from home, and the incoming batch is also studying from home. Unfortunately, both the batches couldn't meet. Uh, However digital we can go, I think the joy and the sheer delight of being in the campus is unmatched. I would say you can never take away. Technology is doing a lot of good to human mankind, but it can never take away the joy of being able to interact in person, whether it's with your friends or relatives or family or teachers or your peer set in office, or in your case your friends in the campus. uh, it will also teach you a lot of lessons, life lessons, that probably otherwise wouldn't have been possible for you. Remember, I think adversity tends to bring out the best in a lot of people. And I would say that uh, these are adverse times in so many ways. For example, if I were to quote my example, I think while a lot of us, including me, have adjusted to working from home, I am quite unnerved now. Like it's like it just wrecks me. It's become very boring and mundane, and it's hard to keep up. To be working with the same velocity and being productive every single day. There are days when I really don't want to look at my computer screen. But then such is life. So I think on the business front, I think we all of us have gone through. I'm sure you've heard many leaders come here and speak. Many businesses have gone through very tough times, uh, and they are hit by the after effect of the pandemic. And it is indeed teaching you or teaching businesses and business leaders uh, very intense lessons on how you should basically adapt, improvise, and behave in the new, what we call the new normal. So let me just talk about a few insights that I have today, which is the new equilibrium in the new normal. And let me begin by saying, sorry, yeah. This is a very, I deliberately, when I was thinking about this 2 days back, and I thought, what is a good way to start this session? I don't know whether you've heard, this gentleman has written, he was at Harvard, he's written fantastic books about the corporate world and innovation in the world. And he made this comment several years back. And he made a very, very, I would say, a provocative comment saying all companies are destined to fail. And he quoted two reasons. The reasons were companies that fail are basically paralyzed by their legacy, they are handcuffed by legacy. And the other reason he said is there is so much of disruption happening in the world that it will create new market and hence new companies. So if you happen to get your hand on this book, to read this book called Innovator's Dilemma, it's a great insight on companies that have failed and companies that have survived and why. And when you look back, sorry, I don't know why I can't. Yeah. Let me just share this great chart that you see here. These are the largest companies by market cap, beginning of 2001 up until 2019. And you will see a great pattern here. If you see the companies that were the biggest companies by market cap or size, there was only one tech company up there, which was Microsoft. And all the other companies, GE, Exxon, Citi, Walmart, have kind of disappeared. Just look at the chart. It's quite fascinating. In 2019, the 5 largest companies by market cap are all tech companies: Microsoft, Google, Apple, Amazon, Facebook. And this goes on to say a lot of things about how the world has changed, how technology has disrupted businesses, and how technology has disrupted consumer behavior, and how technology has disrupted organizations, right? And this is a very interesting quote from one of the, I would say, the most prolific or the most successful entrepreneurs in the world. He too fears of, will Amazon be disrupted one day? And he goes on to say that, I hope it isn't in my lifetime. Now, when you think about all these things, it is quite, it's quite creepy. I would put it that way. These are comments that were made like several years back. And in these times, these comments seem to be even more true as we talk, right? Very, very testing times, especially the last 9 months around the world. And if you think about, this is not just India, it is impacting the entire world in so many different ways. So the point I'm trying to make is, a lot of visionaries have, as I just shared, have put this thing about how organizations must be very nimble, they should innovate. And they always fear what is going to happen if I get disrupted. This fear is actually real, and it is even more real in these very, very tough times. And especially 2020 has made it, or compounded this fear to a great extent. Let me switch gears. So, there is, if you see the graph on the left, this talks about what kind of behavior we were seeing on Google search. When the pandemic and the lockdown happened, there was a lot of what is kind of queries. What is Corona? What is going to happen if I get infected with Corona? And what happened over time? This is just fascinating how the human mind, just readjusts itself to the environment around it. If you just see, by May, this thing moves to how, from what to how to. And there were queries like how to make a face mask, how to get quarantined, how to basically sanitize my house. There was a lot of shift in the search query behavior that we see. And what happens because of this is there is research that says that, look, if you start trending to a certain behavioral attribute, it normally takes about 66 days before it becomes a habit. Now imagine we've been here at it for a good 9 months. And just take a step back and think about when you're over time, just whenever you're like simply not doing anything, you're not on a call, or you're not reading, or you just take a step back and think about how you have changed as a person, or how your behavior has changed as a person. And I can tell you, you will be surprised in probably very little nuances that you didn't even perhaps noticed on how you have changed, and a lot of things have become a habit. And those habits could be of any form and shape. Probably you were very lethargic, you've become a health freak. If not a health freak, you've started at least taking, taking to some form of physical activity, and so on and so forth. But the point I'm making is, it's just fascinating how the human mind adjusts itself to the environment around you. I'm sharing some real life stuff that we have done at Google, and we did this in August actually. So what we did was three things. We looked at Google search and YouTube data. We looked at Google Maps data, which is kind of trends that we see on usage of maps behavior. Are people stepping out? What kind of traffic do we see? What kind of trends are we seeing on Google Maps in terms of finding a store near you, and so on and so forth. And then we actually layered it with individuals through qualitative surveys. So we went to a sample size in the market to understand what consumers are telling us, or what consumers are not just telling us, how consumers are feeling, right? Now, the good thing about, I'll just take a pause here, and I would emphasize that, the great thing about Google search is it tends to throw a huge amount of insight when we try and analyze search behavior, and we analyze the data and we put it to insight. And I'll give you several examples. By a certain type of search behavior, we can predict the economic activity in that country or the region. By search behavior and the kind of interest that a movie sees on YouTube, we can actually tell you whether the movie will be a flop or a hit. There have been instances where, interestingly, this is the might of Google search, and it's fascinating. When people or consumers, we've worked with, global auto companies, and we mine that search data to tell them that, look, you should produce a certain color of a car, because the kind of search queries that we are seeing on Google search tell us that, black is the new preference in this category. And when they basically have, and there are very case studies where they have actually mined search data to get these insights, and they've actually implemented into their business planning, and they've seen some very, very meaningful results. So now what I'm going to share henceforth is what is the outcome of some of these things that we did, which is we took search data and YouTube data. We tried to understand the mobility trends around Google Maps, and we layered it with qualitative surveys that we did with a sample set of consumers. Now, a lot of these things will be maybe intuitive to you, but there are some interesting things that will come up. So, three themes actually. We've compiled all of this into three things. While India has been seeing huge growth in digital, I think it is now firmly established that digital is the gateway to the future. And we'll talk about it why. India actually missed or leapfrogged from not being a desktop country to being a mobile internet country. So if you really think about it, the established or the base of desktops or notebooks in this country will be roughly about 70, 80 million. But there are 650 million plus connected smartphones. So we've basically leapfrogged, unlike US and China, to a mobile internet economy. And the last thing that we basically derived was there is amplified value consciousness in India. Now, note the word is amplified. Indian consumers were always value conscious, but they've become even more value conscious in slightly different ways, and we'll talk about it. So let me dive into what do I mean by digital as the grid. There are two things that happened. The first one was when Jio launched the world's biggest, or I call it the world's largest free sampling exercise, where they gave free data to millions, hundreds of millions of users in the country, right? And when they did that, when they started charging for it, they obviously came up with a very disruptive pricing model that shook the industry, which was a few bucks for very, very really affordable, low pricing for you could access like 2 GB or 5 GB or 10 GB of data every day. And that did two things. One, it made India, from an affordability point of view, the data prices in India were the cheapest across the world, even cheaper than China. And the second thing that it did was that it just there was a hockey stick of growth, where people started using smartphones. And what this pandemic has done, it just built on that layer of growth. So India, by the way, has added 100 million plus smartphones since 2018. In 2 years, we've added more than 100 million plus smartphones. Highest adoption of smartphones anywhere in the world. And the other thing that has happened is the growth trend has shifted. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah,
Now you're audible.
You're audible.
I'm sorry, this is very ironic. I was talking about smartphones and data, and there is a power outage. So my broadband conged off. Sorry. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yes, sir, you are audible.
We can hear you.
I'm back. So great. The point I'm making is that this growth in user base has shifted from urban to rural India. So what you see in terms of data adoption, smartphone adoption, X growth in the post-pandemic timeframe that we are seeing in terms of user base on smartphones. And the fascinating part is that we are one of the highest per capita consumption of data around the world. So an average user in India consumes more than 12 GB per month data. Now, these things are obviously, they talk about the potential of the digital consumption economy in the country. And therefore, a lot of business models tomorrow are going to be, built around this whole digital digital economy. The other interesting thing, as all of you know, all of us turned into cooks. So everybody to just get out of our inner selves. So what we saw was a huge jump in growth in search queries on how to cook, how to make pizzas, several other things that we probably saw in terms of search behavior. Uh, we also saw a lot of interest in terms of personal and beauty care during this time, where people were probably afraid of going to salons. Uh, Instead, they were trying to resort to means that were more personal, one-to-one in nature, where they were trying to either learn or order stuff or beauty and personal care products. And the most glaring thing was that 56% of users who did not use online banking said that they will shift to online banking. And this is good news for than other. And I'll just touch upon it a little later as we speak. Uh, the second theme is the new storefront. I think most of you are millennials. You shop every day on your phone. I don't need to really re-emphasize on this, but what happened, interestingly, the key takeaway here is that uh, you know because of obvious reasons, offline retail was shut. There is a 50% jump in mobile shopping trends than the pre-COVID levels, right? And what this has led to, there is obviously all categories have benefited, but especially I'm just picking up computer and electronics category. There is very clear distinction or a distinct trend that we saw in terms of 50% people were unboxing for electronics items, and 21% were intensely trying to review computer and electronics categories. So just imagine, if you're a marketeer, what's happening here is what we call is the zero moment of truth, where you what you've done is, even before somebody walks into a store, they have done their research. They know about the brand, they know about the product, they've read reviews. Now it becomes increasingly interesting on how brands are going to speak to their consumers in the near future, because thanks to digital, everybody is very informed. They are a much smarter shopper than they were. So these are some of the things that will probably potentially change on how even brands pivot to talking to their consumers in the post-COVID era. The biggest beneficiary, I would say, of the lockdown has been digital payments. So I'll share a very interesting trend with you. So all of you, I'm sure, use Google Pay or Paytm or PhonePe or Amazon Pay or whatever, one of these apps. They are built on UPI. UPI is the underlying layer on which all these digital payments apps are built. What UPI provides is an architecture to provide an IMPS-like mobile payment solution. So it is nothing but IMPS on your mobile. So you can, in 3 clicks, you can basically transfer money, right? What happened very interestingly was that UPI was on a fast track growth curve up until March. But when lockdown happened in March and April, the UPI transactions actually went down. Attributed to the reason that there was less economic activity. There was no mobility. Flights had shut down. Trains had shut down. The overall economic activity was impacted. Right, businesses were not operating. But then what happened again in May, starting May, is that the UPI transactions, digital payment transactions overall, started seeing huge bump. And here are some numbers. Can you believe India does 2 billion plus, mind you, transactions every month. So in November, India did 2.2 billion transactions on UPI. And guess the amount of money, well, you don't need to guess, it's right here, is 400,000 crores of money flowed through all UPI apps. All payment apps, like just imagine 400,000 crores. If you put this in perspective, 400,000 crores is roughly about, I would say, $50 billion, right? $600 billion annually. $600 billion is roughly about 20% of our GDP. So 20% of our economy or the GDP size is already onto digital payments. And this is great news. And think about this, like India has always been, most people have not come into the formal fold of banking or the formal economy. And the first step towards making that happen is people need to have bank accounts, right? The second step is, can you move, India has always been a cash economy. Can you move this economy to a digital economy? Because when you do that, you are bringing a lot of formal thing into the business. So there is, taxation gets sorted. People cannot siphon off money. Businesses can become less reliant on cash. There are many an impact that digital payments does to an economy. Obviously, edutech and healthcare also saw a huge jump. I'll just speak about some numbers. If you track Byju's, Byju's basically onboarded 15 million new users in just 3 months because of the lockdown. And intuitively, because people couldn't step out, there was a 5x jump in online doctor consultation searches. So Practo literally saw a 500% growth, in their I'll just quickly move to, what the third theme, which is amplified value consciousness in India. So, and I'll start here. India has, people in India do not want to pay for content. This was always true. If it were a live session, I would have asked the audience, take a guess, up until February of 2020, Hotstar would have how many paying users, not free, paying users. You will be surprised what that number was. It was actually less than 5 million. Just imagine, there are 650 million plus smartphones who pay for data, but there are less than 5 million people who want to pay for content. And same for Z5 and all other OTTs, right? OTTs are all these, video subscription providers that you see. Over the top is the full. What you see in red, blue, yellow, and gray searches is the searches for Hotstar subscription price, Netflix subscription price, zoom. And what has happened is that a lot of us signed up for paying for these content. So the myth is finally in India is broken. So we have now come to a point where users are willing to pay for content, and this trend will likely stay. And even on the supply side, which is what these OTT players are trying to do, they are also now doing two things. One, they are building for more made in India like content. They are building more vernacular content, and they are also building for mobile content consumption. So you will now see a lot of tie-ups that they're doing with carriers, and they are making their subscription offers more. The other trend that we saw is that personal mobility has taken a new meaning. And what we mean by that is that because people, even when the unlockdown began to happen, people were very, very afraid of taking public transport. We saw a huge bump in buy two-wheelers, buy new cars, buy second-hand cars. The surge in, to find car dealership locations on maps just went through the roof, as you can see on the, on the graph on your left, the bottom left. which is yellow. So there is huge interest that the auto industry has begun to see, and it's now translating into that demand is also translating into some form of sales. This is, of course, it had to happen because a lot of us had to buy laptops for our children or our wives or similarly, there is another trend that is back is comfort wear is back. And you see some kind of vernacular searches on the left where people are now trying to buy, outfits that are more, leisure outfits, and they help them, what we call smart casuals that help them be at home and yet take on calls from home wearing these outfits. The Now this brings us to the point that okay, this is happening. What what pivot will brands do? And I think that one takeaway for all of you here is I think the word trust is going to become more and more front and center for all brands, because now consumers are looking for small trend. You'll be very surprised to hear some. Imagine, could you ever think beyond searches that ever anybody could ever buy an auto, right? An automobile, a four-wheeler. So when Hyundai launched their new car, this is as of August or September, uh, they had 1.5 million people, if I correctly recall, coming onto their website in India, and then 20,000 registrations, and they had resulting into 20,000 bookings where people paid some token amount to book a car online. And uh, this is incredible because there is, as I talk about it, like when things happen, the human mind tends to readjust itself, and then in just about 6 very discrete trend that we are seeing, where people are resorting to a lot of digital mediums for a lot of categories where they're trying to research, and they're more comfortable now buying stuff on digital, which is good news. I won't take much time. I think this is interesting. What consumers told us that, that what they would like to hear from brands is something more around trust and how the brand or the product is going to help them, right? Because now I am in a very different zone. I am not in a pre-COVID zone. I'm in a post-COVID world where I'm more cautious. My exposure to digital is more, obviously, more dominant. I am more aware. I'm more informed. And hence, I would like a brand to talk to me in a very specific way. So what is happening is two things. One, what we are seeing is, and this is an outcome of the study that we did with Ipsos during this time, the changing consumer behavior actually over the last few months has resulted in two things. One, 40% Indian consumers have broad brands that they actually normally wouldn't have, thanks to digital. Now imagine if you are a small or a very small brand who probably never had the resources to fight the distribution might of a large brand, or never had the advertising dollars to fight the might of a large brand, you are suddenly in the zone. It's game on because people are researching, people are discovering new brands. They are talking about it, they are researching, there is social behavior. When somebody of your friends that, look, I tried this boutique brand, and you can buy. So, awareness leading to preference, leading to consideration, and then leading to purchase is obviously, this is a more, a much tighter, better, stronger funnel now. And a lot of small businesses actually were very interested to go digital. So they never had this digital presence, and they suddenly wanted to go digital. Either, get themselves registered on Amazon or Flipkart, or have an app or a very friendly mobile site for themselves so that they could cater to the audiences around their communities. I will tell you a great example that we did during the lockdown. So on GPay, what we did was, if you use GPay, you'll find something called nearby. And when you click on it, it automatically, based on your location, tells you the stores near you. And it also tells you whether the in just 2 weeks, we saw millions of consumers actually on the app using the nearby feature. So this is how consumer behavior is actually changing. Anyway, there are several examples on how brands have repositioned themselves. One of the examples that is closer to our markets is Grofers, who wanted to assure people, its users, that uh, they have the capability to not just deliver, but deliver it in a very safe, hygienic way. There was Maggie, which was trying to leverage. I spoke about everybody was turning into a chef during this time, right? So the YouTube was like through the roof in terms of how to cook, how to make pizza, how to kind of queries. And what Maggie did was they created these very beautiful videos to go and engage make cooking more. And then Hangama tried to do something very quirky, which is they encouraged people to tune into their playlist while they were working from home. So these are some examples of brands being more agile. And when I say agile, they quickly noticed how consumer behavior was shifting and how they pivoted themselves to talking to their consumers in a certain way. I won't go deep into others. There are many examples. I'll stop here and I will be very open to taking questions.
Thanks, Pulkit. It was a great presentation, enriched and substantiated with a lot of data. Of course, COVID has been a reset for us, and human beings have beautifully calibrated themselves to the new reality. And I think it's the beauty of being human. We are naturally endowed to adapt ourselves to change. Now, with this, I would leave the forum open for question and answers. I have a few questions pouring in the chat box, which I would take for your views on it. We have Dr. Daneshwar Sharma saying that from influencing business and manufacturing decisions, do you think Google, Facebook, etc. should switch to influencing election results?
I hope the meeting is not getting recorded.
No, it is not.
Okay. Okay. So, this is a very, I don't know whether this is a question or this is a satirical remark. Whosoever asked probably can unmute themselves and probably ask the question more directly. Do you mean to say that are we influencing election results and hence therefore what are we doing about it to contain that, or is it something else? Shivam, if you're around, if you can just.
Look at the participants can't, they don't have rights to speak. They can only put the query in the chat.
Okay, got it. Let me, okay. So I'm assuming the question is, people believe that Google, Facebook have an impact on influencing election results, and what are we doing about it? Look, it's a very difficult answer to give, but I'll give you some light. Look, social media has, of course, a real role in our life. Let's not shy away. Whether I work for Google, I've worked for Facebook, let's not shy away. And any leader who shies away from a simple fact that, there is the fascinating part of social media and there is this challenging part of social media. And the challenging part is fake news. How do you contain fake news? How do you start acting more responsibly in terms of ensuring that whatever content is being applied is checked, verified, and real? So there are two parts to this answer. One is, yes, tech platforms have played a role both on the good side and the bad side in terms of impacting uh, voter behavior. But to be fair, have they? Is this the only reason why there is a sudden drift towards a certain ideology? No, there are many other factors that come into play. But are companies and governments getting serious to ensure that we solve this problem? Yes. I can tell you, uh, our motto is "Don't be evil." That's our underlying motto, and we stand by it. Uh, Whatever negative PR you may hear, whatever you hear in news or otherwise, some of that is real because those are real questions that tech companies need to answer. But a lot of those are not. And when I say that, for example, we don't mine user data at Google. We don't. We never share Google data with anybody, right? Whether election campaigners or parties or marketeers or no. What we do is that data repository lies with us. We mine the data and we show you ads, right? But as I said, I think the responsibility lies equally on us, all tech companies, Twitter, Facebook, Google, especially, to ensure that we are ensuring safeguards that show content to users in a way that is more responsible. And it's a very, very big topic, which cannot be answered in 5 minutes. It's like a big debate. And if a lot of you have seen this documentary called The Social Dilemma, I don't know whether you've seen that. It is scary. But you know what? The good thing is it puts a lot of pressure on us because it asks a lot of right questions to tech companies on what their responsibility is in the world of extreme hyper connectivity, right? People are on their smartphones like 10 hours a day. So how are we? But yeah, so I obviously didn't answer your question, but this is a very, very complex debate.
Yeah. The next question comes from Meetu Gupta, who says that there has been a number of frauds with the app-based payments, and she also experienced it with the one with GPay, which made her delete the GPay app. So she says, kindly suggest how to identify and what GPay has been doing to make the transactions more safe.
Firstly, ma'am, I'm sorry. To us, if you really see Google Pay or Google, not just Google Pay, I think at the core of our DNA is we should serve every single user, right? And we care about users. The second part is we are dealing with people's money, so we realize the responsibility that we have, which is we work very hard to make your money safe, your transactions reliable and fast. Uh, have we reached a perfectly ideal state? No. Uh, there is a very complex ecosystem that works behind every app, and all apps are dependent on banking infrastructure in India and payment aggregators to facilitate these transactions. It's not as if we own it. What we are doing is uh, there are two things that we are going to do. One is drive user awareness, because at the end of the day, it is our responsibility to tell users how to be safe when they are using these apps. There is very little user awareness and education around these topics, and we will take it upon ourselves. You will see a campaign going live soon, very, very soon in India, where most Indians will be told on what not to do. The second thing is tech, which is the technology. We are working very closely with banks in putting up a more reliable infrastructure to make sure that people's money is being transacted in a very reliable and secure way. As I said, if I were to grade myself on a scale of 10, we are at 6 or 7. We have a long way to go. So, firstly, I'm sorry. I hope you got your money back. If not, please ping us and we will make sure that the query is resolved. We care about each and every single paisa and every single user.
Thanks, Pulkit, for answering it. The next one comes from Nitin Mayerji. He says hackers are targeting COVID-19 vaccine data not only for vaccine invention, but for also other intentions like supply chain, logistics, etc. So is Google helping the society in protecting hacking by pattern matching a search pattern as most of the texts are searched on Google?
Well, I didn't understand the question. Can you repeat it? Because I didn't really
He
understand.
means to say that, there are a lot of hackers targeting COVID-19 vaccine data, not only for reasons of invention, but for supply chain, logistics, and getting the secret recipes kind of stuff. So is Google helping the society in protecting hacking by pattern matching a search pattern as most of the text are searched on Google?
I don't know the answer to the question, to be very honest. This is like, uh, I am not sure whether we are doing this or not. So I don't know the answer.
I'm looking for the next question by the time. Yeah. Will customers show some preference for brands that contribute towards society, or they will continue to be value conscious?
I think, look, uh, I think this is something that it is not a either or thing. Uh, if you're talking about brands that are into business, every brand needs to make money. Most companies are listed companies, so they need to be in the business of doing business. So from that segment, I think brands will have to build trust and cater to this whole amplified value consciousness for India consumers. If you are an NGO, you were anyway, a part of this society. But having said that, I think there is this transition, to be fair, where all businesses in the recent time have pivoted in some way or the other to say that, look, we have a responsibility to contribute to society. And I'll tell you a quick live example. At Google Pay, we immediately build this, capability to provide donations to various distinct entities, right, who are trying to collect money for supporting the needy during these COVID times. I can't share the figure, but in just about 2 weeks, we were able to garner uh, more than it was much more than 1,000 crores of donation that came via Google Pay, and then Google also contributed whatever amount, pumping the overall amount to give to the respective societies or charity funds to be able to help the needy. So similarly, I think we there were a lot of things that were being done by Uber or Swiggy or Zomato to help their delivery staff survive these COVID times, right? Even now, when you order food, it's a very nice gesture when you check out. I don't know whether you've seen, they ask you for a 25 rupee donation, and I wholeheartedly give it. Now, these are very small examples, but they're examples where people are not just trying to serve consumers, but they are also trying to bring in this whole responsibility, collective responsibility from within the consumer and their own end to help help support the ecosystem, their employees, right? So yes, I would say it's a hybrid approach. It's not an either or.
We have Dr. Aparna Mendiratha keen to know that Googlers are always considered to be happy employees. So how do she wants to know a little more about the Google culture and how do the employees adapt themselves to the new normal style of work?
Sure. Um, uh, yeah, I'm very thankful. I work for a company like Google, and I'm really happy. So your observation is right. I think the founders and the leadership of Google has worked really hard to build a culture, and that culture rests on it's a two-sided culture. So what that culture says is, on one side, it encourages employees to do a few things. It says focus on user, respect the opportunity, and drive meaningful outcomes or impact. What it says is that whenever you are doing anything at Google, whether you are selling, whether you're writing code, whether you are doing an ops work, always think what the user wants. Be very, very customer focused. it also harps on the fact that respect the opportunity. What it means by saying is, we are in an era where technology has provided an opportunity to serve billions of users in meaningful ways. uh, we should always be thinking about the benefit that the world, the users, and businesses can derive out of our technology. And the third thing was drive impact. So focus on impact, which is whatever you're doing, be very, very results oriented or meaningful outcome oriented. This is one side. The other side is, I think Google truly believes, and this is, not many companies in the world do that, but it truly believes in investing in people. And when I say that, I mean the kind of focus, there is top down focus to ensure that the company is investing in learning and skill development. The company is investing in the well being of employees. The company is investing in allowing you to take, be yourself, which is unheard of in many companies. Like, you have to be a different person when you walk into office. In Google, you don't. You can be just what you are. There is autonomy. There is the right to free speech. You can write to Sundar even today, right, and he will respond. So there is very little hierarchy and so on and so forth. So it's a two-sided culture, and both sides are very fascinating. So when you do this, employees feel very responsible because they are taken care of, and they are very, very committed or aligned to the Google philosophy of respect the user, respect the opportunity, and focus on impact. Right? That's why we believe, I think it works like magic.
Sahaj Srivastav has a question. The question goes like this. CCI has decided to order a detailed investigation into Google's alleged role in anti-competitive practices, starting from favoring its apps, charging a commission on the app, and in-app purchases, also called as Google tax, mandating app developers to use its own payment systems. What is your opinion about it?
I wish I could give an opinion. This is a sub judice matter, and I'm not allowed to talk about it. As I said, I can only tell you two things. One, uh, I'm sure the law will make sure that they do the right investigation and they come out with their, their with their judgment. The second thing that I would like to re-emphasize is, as I said, we are a very, very user-focused company. Our motto is "Don't be evil," and I can tell you in one single line that our practices, our business practices, are very, very ethical. And there is one thing that we really care about, that is integrity. So we are very clear. We operate within the framework of the local law. We follow all local laws, and we follow very fair business practices. But I can't really talk about details on the investigation or comment on it. Sorry about that.
The next question goes, National Payments Corporation of India said that UPI reaching 2 billion transactions a month and with the potential for future growth, it has capped 30% of total volume of transactions processed in UPI applicable to all third-party app providers from 1st January 2021. So an estimate suggests that GPay has a share of 40%. That means it has to come down to 30% in a span of 2 years. So, what is your take on it? How would it happen?
Yes, you're right. We have 40% volume share on UPI, and we have about 42% value share on UPI.
Yeah.
Your figures are right. Look, I personally believe, and a lot of you would also believe, this is not the right policy to make. Reason is, when you do this, you are basically trying to curb innovation, right? If I have a right product, users will use. If I have a bad product, users will just uninstall me. One example was somebody who just shared that they lost money and they uninstalled the app, right? So I am a believer of free economy and free business practices. Let the best man or woman win. It's all about what consumers want. And when you put such curbs, what you're doing is you are disincentivizing companies like Google, Facebook, Amazon, PhonePe, Paytm to not build the product because they know what will I do, like 30% cap, right? On the other hand, that you should realize is you can build such a policy, but how will you implement it? Have you ever thought about it? People are downloading the app. Will you come back to a Paytm and PhonePe and say, no, you can't download? You will tell users, no, you can't download the app. So again, off the record, very personal comment that I'm making. I don't think this is the appropriate policy. The true tenet of the policy is, I think, misaligned, and also it is hard to implement such a policy.
Difficult to execute. Yeah, Priyanshi has a question that what is the biggest challenge GPay has faced so far?
If you really ask me, there is only one challenge, and we have to solve for that challenge. In fact, there are two actually. The biggest, I would say, is to solve for reliability in mobile payments. Biggest. Make no doubt about it. We have one user here, and I can't stop thinking about, just imagine what it does. There are 100 other people on the call, and just one bad experience puts a lot of doubt in 100 other users whether they should be using GPay. And I can't tell you, you may feel this is very theoretical. At Google, our DNA is like we obsess about every single user. So if we obsess about users and we want to build a great product from a GPay context, I think we have to solve for reliability. And reliability today is a key challenge. Then there are other challenges around frauds, to which there are two sides to the fraud story. One is what can our tech do to prevent frauds? And the other side, as I spoke about, is how can we build more user education and user awareness so that people know that they should not fall prey to spam messages, right? Etc. So I think these are two challenges that we have to solve for, and we will.
The next question goes that Google launched this app which was called Tez in 2017, and in a year's time it got rebranded to GPay. Yeah. So is this journey from Tez to GPay, is it just incidental, or there is a branding perspective to it?
There is a branding perspective and there is a product perspective to it. So when we launched Tez, we obviously were launching a mobile payment product in India first time. And we decided that let's take a very Indian name, which is called Tez, because we really wanted to make mobile payments really fast and secure. So we launched it. But what happened is, for the first time, I saw an Indian product going global, where other Google geographies or countries picked up that we need to build a payments product like India did. So there was Brazil, there was Singapore, there is US that tried to build a product, right? And because we are a global company, we operate in 165 plus countries. The only way forward was we put a lot of deliberation and discussion around this. Can we have 100 different names for a payment product? And we said no. Google search is Google search anywhere you go. YouTube is YouTube. Similarly, a payments product, when we are building for several countries, has to be one single product. So we decided to rebrand it to GPay. And it is GPay US, it's GPay India, it's GPay Singapore, it's GPay Brazil, and so on. So it was a very conscious decision.
An audience wants to know, what is the revenue model for GPay? And is it really contributing to revenues for Google Pay, for Google right now? Or how is it all about?
Great question. Whosoever asked that. I love it because, somebody said, if you read about our Eric Schmidt, who was the CEO of Google during Larry Page's time, said, revenue solves all problems. So anybody who has that, great mindset, congratulations. When you run a business, you think about revenue and you obsess about revenue. So coming to the answer, does Google Pay make money? Yes. Do we break even? No. How will we make money? Look, it's not easy to make money on payment apps. I wish I was there. I could probably, I'm on a call and I understand it's over time. I'll give you a quick view. If you really look at the payments ecosystem around the world, the people who make money are banks and networks, Visa and Master, right? And the value chain is very limited when you're making money. You're charging bips from every transaction that is flowing out of credit and digital credit cards and debit cards. Now, when you think about payment apps in India, the payment apps in India are trying to build an ecosystem. What I mean by that is, yes, you come to GPay today to send money to your friend or relative. You pay a business. The app is free. We're not going to make money. But what I will do, or what other businesses will do, is any payment business will do is they will start to layer it with services. So, for example, tomorrow you could book a ticket. Actually, you could do it even today. You could order food. You could pay your bills. You could recharge phones. I'm trying to build a layer of services on two sides of the spectrum, one for users and the other for businesses. Honestly, we haven't thought about monetization yet, but we are seriously debating on what will be the right revenue models for a payments like business. So there are many opportunities, I can tell you, that are going to emerge, and the future of banking mobile payments in India 4 to 5 years from now, this is I'm making a very confident forecast here, is going to dramatically change. And I think increasingly everything is going to consolidate towards the mobile ecosystem. So there could be a scenario where you will not just pay using a payments app, you will probably do a lot of other activities, commerce activities and banking activities from your payment app. And this applies to both users and merchants. And we will figure out a way to make money around those models.
I think we can take one more question, and that is, there's a saying that Google sab janta hai. Google knows where my office is, which route I take to office, what websites I go to, what is my political ideology, spiritual ideology. It has got a chilling amount of data. So, yeah, is it moral and ethical? And probably Google might even know that we are having a webinar today. So it is a chilling amount of data, and is it leading us to a data digital rights revolution, or it's going to be a way of life?
I think your concern is very real. You should really question people and governments and regulators and users and businesses have the right to ask questions. And this question is very real. There is huge amount of data sitting with tech companies, not just us, a lot of other tech companies. What are we doing with the data is the right question. Let me tell you, as I said earlier, we don't sell data. Make no mistake, we don't sell data. Do we know something about you? Yes, we do. First thing you should do is we give the right to the user. Go to Google settings, delete all permissions. Google will have zero data. By the way, when you launch any Google service, it asks you, are you okay to share this data with Google? Right? If you're not comfortable, whosoever asked this question, I'm encouraging you to go to Google settings on your mobile phone, go to settings, change all permissions to no, 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 no. Google will have zero data. So the point I'm making is we believe in giving the power to whether you are agreeable to sharing your data to the user. It is consent based. We will always give this power. Can we do a better job of making people know that they are giving their consent? Yes. So over time, you will see even more very, very deliberate messages coming from Google when you're using a service that yes, you will be able to, whether you want to give consent or not. So the power lies with you. Please go and delete all data, clear your caching browser history, cache from your phone, maps data, everything. Change your settings.
Your career suggests that you've always worked with tech companies, right? So what is your mantra of tech leadership?
I think it's not about tech leadership. It is leadership. And it is leadership that applies across wherever you are. And I think my mantra about leadership is 3 or 4 things. One is, I think you have to be uh, very people focused. Great leaders are always very people focused. They invest in people, they build great teams, and they always believe in ensuring that they are building great teams for the right reasons for the organization and leaving a great bench behind. The second thing is, I think, inclusiveness. Great leaders are always very inclusive, uh, not dictatorial when you're running businesses, because you have to be open to ideas, you have to listen to other people, and you have to make sure that diverse views are entertained and they always help you deciding what you need to do. So that's the other part. And the third part, in my view, is uh, great people make decisions. They are not afraid of taking decisions. They always take decisions, whether right or wrong, and they stand by it, and they lead by example. So, three things: invest in people, be inclusive in your approach, and don't be fearful of taking decisions, and stand by that.
One last piece to hear from you, a piece of advice for the students for whom, the most of the tech companies that you've worked for might be aspirational brands. So what can take them there?
Look, I think firstly, I will give you a very practical advice. One is, unfortunately, you are studying the way you're studying today. You can't be in college, but assume it were normal times. I think, look, MBA is one course that should be a balance between uh, soft skill development and industry knowledge. Mind you, not theoretical knowledge, industry knowledge. I don't believe in, mugging up Kotler and writing and puking, 5 pages on a paper. I would rather be very, very close to how the industry is operating and expose students, faculty to what the industry wants and be very close. The academic curriculum is set in a way which is so industry knowledge and soft skills. So one, my advice is focus on building both these, which is hone your industry knowledge and really work on your soft skills. Soft skills is a combination of how you communicate. Are you improving your analytical skills? Are you improving your problem solving skills? Are you collaborative at work, at institute? All those things, this is the only time. And then I think the other thing that I will tell you is uh, whatever work you do, whether a tech company or a non-tech company, I think there is uh, there is only one way to succeed, and that way is by virtue of not limiting yourself, being very self-aware of who you are, and trying to always assess how you can basically do more with your potential. It's not easy. You will learn as you go in your career, whether you join Intel or Google or a Unilever or a Vodafone. But I think this whole thing about being self-aware, not limiting yourself to the confines of your mind. I think what we call here at Google is moonshot thinking. You should always have or chase, not be afraid to fail. You will fail, you will learn, you will iterate, and you will move on. People who are afraid to fail, not chase lofty, big goals, challenging goals, will never succeed in whatever they do, like in their personal life or otherwise, right? So don't be afraid to fail. Be very self-aware and don't be afraid to chase very, very moonshot goals.
Thanks, Pulkit, for wonderful bits of advice and a very insightful session. It was a delight learning from you, hearing from you, and I'm sure each one of us has become more enriched about how GPA operates and the data security and other concerns that they've been talking of. We look forward to hear more of you. Most likely, when the session goes physical, we would love to have you in each of our campuses. Looking forward for more interactions. Thank you all. Thank you so much. And thanks to all the audience for being a actually enthusiastic and a curious audience. Thanks a lot.
Ma'am, thank you for setting this up. And I can see 230 people on the call. I really appreciate you spending time and being here on a Friday evening. I know, and I hope the session wasn't boring.
It was
Really,
very interesting.
I really appreciate your time and investing time here and look forward. Stay safe and thank you. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. Likewise. Thank you. Thank you, Pulkit. Bye.